evening, students, and welcome to Lesson 1.7, Multiply by Two-Digit Numbers. To begin, let's take a look at our essential question. How do you multiply by two-digit numbers? Well, I'm going to show you two different strategies that you can use to multiply by two-digit numbers. But before we begin, let's take a look at our Unlock the Problem. A tiger can eat as much as 40 pounds of food at a time, but it may go for several days without eating anything. Suppose a Siberian tiger in the wild eats an average of 18 pounds of food per day. How much food will the tiger eat in 28 days if he eats the same amount each day? Well, let's begin by looking at a couple of our keywords in this word problem. For example, let's says as much as 40 pounds, and we know that most of the time our numbers are important, at a time. Okay, suppose the Siberian tiger in the wild eats an average of 18 pounds of food per day. That per typically means that we're going to multiply because we're doing the same thing every day for a consecutive period of time. So how much food will the tiger eat in 28 days if he eats that same amount each day? That same amount typically means that we're going to multiply 2. So let's take a look at all of our numbers. We have 40 pounds of food, 18 pounds of food per day, and how much will the tiger eat in 28 days if he eats that same amount each day? Well, looking at all of our numbers, we can see that we are probably not going to need to use that 40 pounds. That's what's known as a distractor. All right, so let's look at the numbers that we do have. We have 28 days and 18 pounds per day. Okay, well, the first thing we can do is to estimate 28 times 18. And we're going to think 20 times or 30 times 20 because we have rounded our 28 up to 30 and our 18 up to 20. So now we can just take a look at our basic fact of 3 times 2, which we know is 6, and there's a 0 in this factor and a 0 in this factor, so we need to add 2 zeros back on, which gives us an estimate of 600. So now, I've found that the best way to do these is to set them up vertical. And we're going to do this by remembering our place values. So we're going to start by multiplying by our ones. And we have to multiply both numbers on top by our 1. So we have 8 times 8 is 64. And we have to regroup and carry the 10. 2 times 8 is 16 plus 6 equals 22. Now we have to multiply both our numbers on top by our tens column. And we know that 8 times 1 is 8. And since we're multiplying by tens, we have to start our answer in the tens column, which means we put our imaginary 0 in our ones column. And then 2 times 1 is 2. And our next step is going to add 224 plus 280. So 4 plus 0 is 4, 8 plus 2 is 10, carry our 1, 2 plus 2 is 4, and 1 is 5. Now for some of you, you may be able to pick up on this particular strategy, but let's take a look at another strategy. We have 28 times 18. Now we said that we're going to multiply both numbers on top by our number in the ones column. So to do that, let's get rid of what's in our tens column. So now we know that 8 times 8 is 64. We carry our 6. 2 times 8 is 16 plus 6 is 22. Now let's set this number off to the side to remember. Now, since we got rid of our tens, now we're going to have to multiply by our tens, but now we're going to get rid of our 1. So we're going to have 28 times, and when we have 18 minus 8 ones, that's going to leave us with 10. So now we're going to multiply by 10. Now, we know that Anytime we multiply by a number with a 0, we simply just need to add that 0 on. And then we multiply everything 280. So we start with our first number and just basically add our 0 onto the end of it, which gives us our 280. So over here to the side, we're going to take our second answer of 280 and add it to our first answer of 224. And we are going to 4 plus 0 is 4, 8 plus 2 is 10, carry our 1, 2 plus 2 is 4, and 1 is 5. And we get the same answer. So on average, a Siberian tiger may eat 504 pounds of food in 28 days. Now let's take a look at our second example. So, a Siberian tiger sleeps as much as 18 hours a day or 126 hours per week. About how many hours does a tiger sleep in a year? There are 52 weeks in 1 year. So first of all, we need to pull out our key information that we need to use. And we know that it sleeps 18 hours a day or 126 hours per week. And about how many hours does a tiger sleep in a year? There are 52 weeks in 1 year. So we know that he's going to do the same thing each day, and he's doing the same thing each week. And it provided us the number of weeks in a year. So it looks like to me we have another distractor because we're talking about week here and weeks here. So this part about 18 hours a day then becomes our distractor. So we need to get rid of that information. Now, since he's doing the exact same thing every week for 52 weeks, we know that we're going to multiply. So we set up our problem 126 hours times 52 weeks per year. Now, for some of you guys, we can simply multiply. So we'll start with multiplying all the numbers across the top by the number in our ones place value. So 6 times 2 is 12, carry our 1, 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5, 1 times 2 is 2. Now we're going to multiply by our tens, so we need to put our imaginary 0 in the ones placeholder, and then we're going to multiply our top number by our number in the tens place value. So 6 times 5 is 30. We need to carry the 3. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 3 is 13. We carry our 1, and 1 times 5 is 5, plus 1 equals 6. Now we simply need to add these two numbers together. So 2 plus 0 is 2, 5 plus 0 is 5, 2 plus 3 is 5, and 6 plus nothing is 6. So our answer is 6,552. Now let's take another look at the problem doing it the second way. We have 126 times 52. Well, since we're going to multiply, we're just going to simply come over here and take our 126 and multiply it by the number in our ones place value. And for right now, we're going to forget about the tens place value. So 126 times 2 is 6 times 2 is 12, carry our 1, 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5, 1 times 2 is 2. Now, we're going to reverse that. So now we will take our 126 and we're going to forget about our ones column by replacing that with a 0, and we're going to multiply by our tens place value. So we know that we automatically need to add a 0 because any number multiplied by 0 is going to end with a 0. We know that 6 times 5 is 30, carry our 3, 2 times 5 is 10, 11, 12, 13, carry our 1, and 1 times 5 is 5, plus 1 is 6. So that gives us 6,300. So now we take our second answer of 6,300, being sure we keep everything aligned, all of our place values aligned, and we add them together. So we're going to add our ones together. So 2 plus 0 is 2, 5 plus 0 is 5, 2 plus 3 is 5, and 6 plus nothing above it is 6. So we see that our answer matches. So a Siberian tiger sleeps about 6,552 hours in 1 year. All right, let's take a look at one more example. So let's say that we have 24 times 15. Remember, we're going to come over to the side and multiply 24 times the number in the ones column, which is 5. And we know that 4 times 5 is 20, carry our 2. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 2 is 12. Now we're going to forget the ones column, and we are going to multiply by our tens column. So then it becomes 24 times 10. And we know that any number multiplied by 10 simply ends in a 0, and our first factor becomes part of our answer. So now we have 120 as our first answer, plus 240 as our second answer. 0 plus 0 is 0, 4 plus 2 is 6, 2 plus 1 is 3, so our total answer is going to be 360. Now I want you guys to pull out your math journal, and you may pause at this moment to take the notes into your math journal. And be sure you record our password, which is and bring that with you to class tomorrow as evidence that you have taken the notes and watched the video. See you then.